Click on the link below and you get access to programs pulled directly from my book. You get spreadsheets, you get cheat sheets, you might even get some bed sheets. Today we are going to take a look at strength lifting. This is something that I recently covered, a little several minute long snippet I put in my last video on my main channel where I was just kind of taking the piss out of strength sports in general. That's something I'll do occasionally. My main channel, it's 90% educational content, and if you're following this channel, it's because you definitely don't want the educational content. I mean, I just started this because I needed a place to put my shower thoughts. But my main channel, that's where my more substantive content goes. And I've had a lot of success, don't get me wrong. I like the essays, I like the listicles, but we need a break every now and then. So I did just kind of a shit talking video talking about all the different strength sports, which ironically was an extraordinarily high effort video. Maybe that's my new YouTube niche, low quality, high effort. So the video starts off with a pretty thorough roasting of powerlifting, but then I move on to kind of the peripheral strength sports that operate around it. So I decided to talk about it a bit more to see if powerlifting is as bad as I insist that it is, and if strength lifting is actually the fix. Why do so many of my reaction videos lean towards Ripito and the starting strength universe? Couldn't tell you. This is where we are. Let's call it a phase. Maybe I'll grow out of it. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just hunker down here and this will just end up being a starting strength affiliate channel. Who knows?
Do a strength lifting meet and a powerlifting meet. They know the depth is going to be judged. They know you can't get away with 8 inches above parallel squat. I would rather watch the press than a bench press.
All day, yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to watch 60 bench presses. People laying down and taking the bar out of the rack and all the yelling.
100%. And I talk a lot of shit about Ripto, but we're in lockstep on a handful of things. And one of them is how painfully boring the bench press is. And I don't know if people don't talk about it because everybody just takes for granted that powerlifting is really shitty spectator sport. So they've just resigned themselves like, yeah, we make our money off overcharging competitors and then holding their aging grandparents who traveled 3 states to watch them compete. We're going to hit them at the door with a spectator fee. What are we providing them? Absolutely nothing. We're not setting this up as a spectator event. The athletes are paying to keep the meet going. But you know what? We're going to siphon some money out of your dear old granddad's wallet, all right? But in some parallel universe where powerlifting is meant to actually exist as a spectator sport, the bench press is fucking atrocious. For as much as we talk about the arch and how shallow the presses are, that's like the 5th thing wrong with it. As you get to increasingly heavier benches, you need somebody to fix a camera above the athlete to see what's going on. If you take something like a Julius Maddox 800-pound bench press attempt, you would think it's really electric to watch in person. It fucking sucks because there's people all around the bar making sure he doesn't die if he drops it on himself, like he almost did when they misloaded it. Like even the judges have a hard time seeing what's going on, but even if you're hovering around, you can't see anything. And then if you're up back in the bleachers or wherever the spectator area is, you see the corner of the plate going up or down. It's just such a shitty event to watch. It takes forever to set up. Everybody needs their own specific little rack height. It's a pain in the ass lift. Doesn't even make sense. All the other lifts, you're standing on your own 2 feet. Why do you need a bench to show people how strong you are? And of course, the guy spotting you is like a millennial. He's still stuck in the era where like long basketball shorts that go over your knee are in style. He hasn't got the message that short shorts are back in. And that shit just cooks. He's just marinating in it. And that guy's got to stand up, straddle your face as you lie down, do your little contortionist act to get into a bench press. And while you're tight and uncomfortable and you're holding your breath and you're trying not to crush your sternum under this weight, you're being waterboarded with ball sweat. It's a miserable experience. Nobody wants to watch it. Let's just fucking get rid of it.
What was the load times in between lifts at one point?
We were averaging 35 seconds.
That's fast as fuck.
On the deadlift, probably.
And you go to like...
we run about
overall, but you got to remember the press goes very fast, right?
I think our average, I measured this one time, our average across all 3 of the lifts across the whole meet was 1 minute and 4 seconds per attempt.
Another thing I like about our strength lifting meets is we don't have to hear the same 3 Disturbed songs on repeat over and over again, blaring over a loudspeaker.
Yeah, there are several things. Well, let's talk about our rules, all right?
That could have been a really good opportunity for some humorous observations, but Mark wants to go back talking about the rules. I don't know why strength athletes in general, I don't know why they bias towards the worst fucking music. Of all of the music you could potentially hear, you are just exponentially more likely to hear the shittiest rock from like the 2000s. It's like Disturbed in 3 Days Grace on a loop. It's like every meet I go to, I expect to just look out the window and see a bunch of lifted off-road trucks covered in mud because it's just the soundtrack of Victorville, California.
The way we run a strength lifting meet is completely different. We don't have music in the venue, unless it's in the warm-up room or on your headphones. You're not there to listen to music. This is supposed to be an athletic competition, and I don't know of a tennis match where Pantera is turned up to 11.
All right, it's a little gay. He's comparing his meet to tennis, and I think that's one of the worst things about strength sports is when they take themselves too seriously to where they want it formal. And you'll see this in powerlifting sometimes where like they have the judges, everybody's wearing a polo shirt and they have a dress code and they don't want anybody cracking ammonia salts. I got yelled at once for backslapping a lifter. Some like 70-year-old lady holding the clipboard's like, hey, we don't do that here. Olympic lifting was like that for a long time. I've been to meets like when I go to the Arnold Classic, there were Olympic lifting meets where even though the whole venue's kind of noisy, in the little expo hall that they have, it's very quiet. Everybody's it's like Tiger Woods is about to sink a putt and it's just super quiet and everybody's on bated breath waiting for them. They don't want to disturb the athlete because it's this highly technical movement. I actually do have a soft spot for multiply, for as horrendous as a sport as it is, because they did try to turn it into a spectator sport. They only had the biggest lifts. Any given moment, something was likely to go wrong. I remember just walking by casually at like the Fit Expo in LA and seeing a guy with like 800 pounds on the bar fold in half and have the bar shave all the hair off the back of his head. And they put it back up. And I remember them blowing and hair just going up into the air. And they would have like pyrotechnics. They would have card girls. They would have music blaring. So it was kind of an attempt to make it a spectacle. Now, after enough time, that shit just sounds like pots and pans being banged together. So I don't know if that's actually the way to go. There is a problem with these sports, which is the number of competitors leads to monotony. It's like Chinese water torture. No matter what you do, it's going to be the same thing for 10 hours. So I guess it doesn't fucking matter. But it's like if, I don't know, if restaurants can make their branding revolve around music that people don't hate. Like every time I go to Yard House, I don't go there as much because I worked there for a couple of years, still got PTSD from that shit, still wake up in the middle of the night sweating with server nightmares. I'm getting yelled at because I forgot some old woman's ranch dressing like 8 weeks ago. But when I did go in there, it was cool. It was ran by a bunch of middle-aged dudes. It was all the same guy with gray hair and the white button-up shirt. They were all there because they liked being nerds about beer and listening to 90s rock, and it was a good time. I don't know why it'd be so fucking hard for an organization to actually spend some time curating a playlist to actually fit within a brand. Tell the DJ you can't play the same Disturbed song 19 times in a row, and tell the athletes no, you don't get to pick a song. We're not having your own personal DJ. Put some fucking headphones on if you don't like it, and then let the organization put out a playlist that's actually pleasant and appropriate for the people watching it. That's my 2 cents, but that could go sideways too. You never know. You could have a meet director who has an affinity for 2010s folk music. So you're listening to some mousy Norwegian chick mumble her way through a stomp clap hey. I'm going to say there's no good answers here. I just resent the tennis comparison.
That occur because we're supposed to be paying attention to what's going on, not rocking out, dude, right? So we're silent at these meets. We don't have any music on at all. In a strengthlifting meet, our judges don't say anything. They don't participate in the competition. They don't tell Chase when to take the bar out of the rack, when to press it, when to lower it, when to put it back in the rack. They don't talk to him. They don't tell him when to pull the deadlift off the floor or when to set the deadlift back down. They don't tell Chase when to squat because Chase knows the rules. And Chase is responsible for following the rules. And if Chase doesn't follow the rules, then theoretically, the red lights are turned on. The lifter is responsible for the execution of the lift in the correct sequence that is specified in the technical rules. And the judges don't do anything but judge, right?
Now, this is another big win. For the life of me, I have no idea why judges have to participate in your lifting. The idea of giving a start command, a down command, a press command. Those are all the dumbest things in the world. Even telling you when it's a good lift for you to lower the bar. And it creates so much goddamn confusion. There have been numerous times where somebody's like given a down command or they've started to move their hand, which is initiating like that, yes, you can set the bar down. And somebody sets a bar down, but then the judge's like, well, you weren't quite there yet. That type of shit happens all the time. It is stupid. You should be able to watch somebody lift and then determine as you're watching it, did you do what you were supposed to do?
I remember the head judge, who was a buddy of mine, was judging a big bench, up toward 600-pound bench press. And he knew better than this, but as I mentioned previously, people are people. And he ended up giving the press signal, which in powerlifting would be the the signal that you have paused on the chest long enough, and now you can push the bar up off your chest, because there's supposed to be a pause on the chest. And this guy gave the press signal before the bar got down to the lifter's chest. Jumped the gun quite badly. So in a situation like that, you got 3 judges. First judge, the head judge, just fucked this up. Now, what do the other 2 judges do?
I have no idea.
They don't either. They don't either. That's the problem. But what we have done is remove a big piece of the reason why judges make mistakes. Because, I mean, if you look at it like this, why doesn't if the head judge is going to judge the pause and participate in the pause on the bench press, why doesn't the head judge tell you when you're deep enough on the squat? Is there any material difference between those 2 situations?
The complete arbitrary difference between the standards of each lift is one of the things that drives me so fucking crazy about powerlifting, because at no point was there any attempt to like actually standardize the entire sport by making sure that lifts were treated similarly. There's a maximum width you can go on a bench press. There's not a maximum stance you can take on a squat or a deadlift. You have to pause on a bench. You can bounce the shit out of a squat. Sleeves are allowed in a squat. Nothing is allowed on your elbows in a bench. It's almost like they went out of their way to make it fucking different.
And then again, our way out. The way out is one of the more important things that we have developed over the years of doing these things. What is a weight class in a weight class sport? And what are they for? I mean, it should be obvious that the reason we have weight classes is so that we can keep people of roughly even physical capacities to compete together. Now, I know of a meet that I announced quite some time ago where one of the guys in the 165-pound weight class, now listen carefully because you're not going to believe this, 165-pound weight class, he weighed in that morning on a 2-hour weigh-in at 165 pounds, having weighed 209 10 days prior to that.
Jesus.
And then the attempt was going to be, that was a 24-hour weigh-in, and the attempt was going to gain back as close to 209 as he could, having weighed in at 165. So everybody is in agreement that if you're in the 165-pound weight class, that nobody weighs 165, right?
It is bizarre that this is what propagated in all weight class sports uncritically. And the incentive structure is for the promoters to do as much as they can to make sure that each weight class puts out the biggest absolute performance. So that's how you go from a 2-hour weigh-in for convenience to a 24-hour weigh-in where you know that, okay, now instead of cutting, 4 or 5 pounds, guys can cut 30 or 40 pounds. I myself have done a 36-pound weight cut, and I'm a lot bigger than that guy. I don't know how you don't have more deaths in the sport from people getting stupid with these types of weight cuts, but it's a risk. So it's not just health, but it also defeats the entire fucking purpose of what you're doing. I've said over and over, guys spend way too much time worrying about dot scores and coefficients, but powerlifting incentivizes that. That's how they pick best lifter. So everybody starts obsessing, not with how do I lift better, how do I get stronger, how do I game the system, and then how good you can cut becomes part of your overall performance package, which is pretty asinine. If you're going to have weight classes, the goal should be to figure out what you're going to be weighing to put out your optimal performance. And that's going to be you when you're hydrated, when you're fueled up, and you weigh what you fucking weigh. So I think the weigh out is a genius idea. It's probably faster. I have a contest coming up in 5 weeks and I got a plan around the weigh-in, and I wish everybody would just show up and lift. You do what you do and then they weigh people afterwards. That'd be fantastic, but that's not what they do. So I have to now commit to a weight cut in order to be competitive. It's a giant pain in the ass. Somebody tried getting in the comments and saying, oh, no, that's a problem because athletes are going to be competing dehydrated, which is a complete nonsense point. Athletes are not going to dehydrate themselves for an entire meet because they're going to figure out that's a really, really shitty way to put up a good performance. The hit to your performance or even the likelihood of a strain is going to make that a no-go from the start. I mean, how dehydrated could you compete without your performance tanking? It's on the order of like 1 or 2% of your body mass. It's not going to be enough to give any competitive edge, but it will tank your numbers, make you feel like shit. If anything, that's just going to turn the sport back to people doing what they can to lift as much as possible, which is what the fucking sport should be.
So you got a guy lifting in the 165-pound weight class, quote unquote, who weighs at least 185 pounds, maybe 190. Well, we don't do that shit because that's wrong and it's stupid, and we understand how the English language works. And when you say weight class, that has a meaning. So what we do in strength lifting is we do a weigh out. In other words, when you conclude your deadlift, the last deadlift you're going to pull.
And if you're going to do that, you're going to have people falling organically in weird parts where they're just at the beginning of a weight class or they're in the middle of a weight class, where now everybody forces themselves into the upper range of a weight class, and it kind of clusters. And it kind of by itself seems to defeat the nature of a weight class. It's a really kind of meaningless range you're forcing people into to score them against each other. And if you have coefficient scores anyways, why not just have, here's the weight you lifted, and then have, here's your coefficients, and you have two different ways of ranking people. For some reason, people can go run a goddamn marathon and be comfortable looking at the outcomes afterwards, comparing themselves to many thousands of people. But for something like this, it's like, oh no, we have to put you in your own tight little competitive category with 2.5 other people to see where you're at. It's like you lift what you lift, and you're like, oh, well, here's my coefficient score on body weight, and here's what I lifted. And again, it kind of makes, in my opinion, makes a weight class obsolete, but that's all I got to say about the weight classes. So this is a while ago. This is about 8 years ago. Alan Thrall competed in a strengthlifting federation, and I haven't really got around to it yet. I think Ripto talked a little bit about it not really doing much 5 years ago when he put out that video. I don't think it's done much since. Actually, let me see. Yeah, this is from July 10th, is a couple weeks ago. That's in Nebraska. So it looks like, it's bizarre. I have a website, 2024. They're not doing much of anything. WFAC, this is back in 2019. Jesus Christ. Did I just make a video on a dead sport? Is that what I did? Sorry guys, I had assumed that if there was a promoter that figured that they could charge people to show up to a meet and they would show up. This is kind of crazy. Like, putting together a federation is one of the easiest fucking things in the world. And it is such easy money to see who runs the local powerlifting meets. I mean, like back in California where we were doing it, you would see just how much money would come in. It's a membership service. It's super lucrative because you have to charge membership fees. So every athlete has an annual fee that they pay. So if you're the guy that owns it, you can let the individual meet directors keep all of the money they have coming in. So they do all the work, and you provide the judges, you might provide the plates or the equipment, but they're keeping, I mean, multiply a couple hundred lifters over a $200 entry fee. It's a lot of money. But as the owner of the Fed, it doesn't even matter, because you've got the many, many thousands of lifters who have competed in your organization that year who are paying a membership fee that's not that small. It's hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions of dollars that you get literally just off that subscription service, which is the annual fee that they have to pay. In addition to that, you charge sponsors to let their equipment in. They got to pay you exorbitant fees so that you'll let your lifters wear their shitty knee sleeves or whatever. It's a huge racket. Strongman Corporation, when Dion Wessels ran it, was fucking horrible for that. It was to the point where they were telling you as an athlete what hotels you could stay at. If you didn't stay at the approved hotel, they would charge you an extra $100 fee, because they would get a deal with the hotel to where they would get kickbacks. They'd reserve blocks, and however many people got a room there, they would get a kickback, a certain percentage of the people that stayed. And it was just a huge racket. They have so many ways of extracting money. I am astonished that nobody took this and ran with it, because this could be a pretty big federation right now. This could be challenging the other bullshit string sports that exist. I don't know who to blame for that, but this looks dead. Aside from the one meet that Starting Strength actually hosts every 6 months, I'm not seeing anywhere where they actually hold these.
The federation is United States Strengthlifting Federation. It's called a strength meet.
Man, Alan Thrall was kind of beefy back in the day. I mean, that was a 509 opener. And you see, he doesn't compete at a very heavy body weight. You see the glutes, the thighs are thoroughly well developed. I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he was a pretty good athlete back in his day.
Opposed to a power meet or an Olympic meet. And the contested lifts are the squat, the press, and the deadlift. Just like a powerlifting meet, you have 3 attempts for each lift. And the best completed lift for the squat, press, and deadlift is added together for a total. You might have heard of this being called a CrossFit total. Other than the obvious difference of the overhead press in place of the bench press, there are a couple of differences from most standard powerlifting meets. The first one that I liked a lot was that there is no judge and lifter interaction. There are no commands: start, squat, press, down, rack. There's none of that. It's on the lifter to show that they can successfully perform the lift. And if they don't follow the known rules, then they'll be red lighted.
I mean, just watching this, why would you ever need somebody to tell you to squat? What an absolute... The people that run this shit are the most like anal retentive idiots in the world. And I'm surprised they haven't talked more about the equipment regulations. I mean, everybody knows I got yelled at a meet I did because my socks were touching my knee sleeves. People talk about, you know, they'll stop you because your thumb loops have to be off. And that's just something that gives me a ton of charity towards people. It warms my heart when I see somebody like Rip analyze something, see like there's too much cat hair on a lint roller, there's too much shit that accumulated, and you just got to start pulling it off. Declutter it. The sport is in dire need of decluttering.
As a lifter, you're going to hear platform ready or the bar is loaded and your clock starts. And it's on you to unrack the bar, walk it out, show that you have control, squat when ready, obviously to depth, show control at the top, and walk the weight in. Good lift. Squat suits are not allowed, bench shirts are not allowed, deadlift suits are not allowed. I'm pretty sure that knee wraps are also not allowed. Knee sleeves are fine. Walk the weight out, stop moving, press, show control at the top, lower it, walk it in. Now let's talk about some rules for the press, because this again is the biggest difference between bench press powerlifting meet. The bar has to start below the chin. It doesn't have to touch the collarbones. It can, but it has to be anywhere between the collarbones and the chin.
So it looks from there that you are allowed to do the little pump. So if it starts below the chin, you can pull it down to get a little bit of recoil to get it going. I know that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. They want the press to be as strict as possible. I don't think there's a good way to do a standing press. It's not going to use your body in some capacity, especially as the weight gets heavier and heavier. I really don't have an opinion on that. Personally, I think it'd be cool as shit if they let anything go as long as your feet stay in the same position. You know, they push press if you want, but it's going to rub somebody the wrong way no matter what the rules are.
You must take a thumbs around grip. You can't use a thumbless or suicide grip. Now, you have to perform a strict press within their definition of what a strict press is. You cannot bend your knees and your feet or heels can't come off the ground, so a push press is not allowed. You are, however, allowed to move your hips forward like you see me doing here. You're also allowed to lean back. I don't think there's a rule as far as to how far you can lean back, but similar to all the lifts, including the bench press, once the bar starts traveling up, any downward movement would lead to a red light. Just like...
So right there, if there's a rule on how far you can lay back, and you'll see like the Chase Lindley video, there's people that can lay back like crazy, and that presents a huge advantage, and it counters the idea of what a strict press is anyways. So instead of saying, oh, it's got to be strict and wheeling out the board like they do in strict curling to make sure you're not arching back too much, instead just acknowledge people are going to take their liberties getting the weight overhead, and instead of limiting people that don't have a bendy spine where they can do a standing incline press, just let people get it overhead how they get it overhead. I'm not saying that that's best as a unified standardized test of strength, but I do think that's best to prevent a really inconsistent standardization for the few people that can exploit this one aspect of the rule. If I know somebody that can lay all the way back and bench press their overhead, I should be able to counter that by getting some leg drive. But I guess it doesn't matter. It's a dead fucking sport.
Again, any of the other lifts. So you can't double bounce the bar off your chest. I like to press because I just like pressing, but it also sped up the whole meet. So for those of you who have competed in a powerlifting meet, you can appreciate that. And I assume that the press was faster because the weight is relatively lighter than the bench press. So they're not adding and loading as much weight onto the bar. There's no time spent adjusting spotter arms like for the bench press. And the lifter's setup is much quicker for the press than it is for the bench press trying to get your arch and whatnot. For the deadlift, same thing with commands. You don't have to wait for a down command. You just go up to the bar, pull it, lock it out, set it down. You can't drop the bar, obviously. The major rule difference for the deadlift in this federation is that sumo is not allowed. You can take as wide of a stance as you like, but your hands must be outside your legs. Now, one other big difference with this federation, their weigh-ins. They actually don't have weigh-ins, they do weigh-outs, which you'll see me doing after my third deadlift attempt. Immediately upon finishing your last deadlift, your third attempt deadlift, you get your weight scorecard and you walk to the scale. There is no 24-hour weigh-in or even 2-hour weigh-ins. And they do this for a couple of reasons. I'm speaking on my behalf, not on USSF, but I'm assuming they do it for a couple of reasons. The first one being that it saves time because everyone is weighed in by the time the last deadlift hits the floor, and it's all done during the meet, except the last person obviously is not weighed in, but everyone else has. So you don't have to show up early to the meet to weigh in. You just show up, lift, weigh out, go home. And the main reason they do this is because it ensures everyone competes at the weight class they belong in. You can cut weight if you like, but you have to compete at that weight because they don't record your body weight until after the meet. You also only have one shot at weighing in. You can't be a pound over and then ask for 30 minutes to go run around, pee, throw up, or whatever people do to lose weight.
I've done all of those.
Then they actually tested this method before implementing it by weighing everyone before the meet and then weighing everyone after the meet. And they found that hardly anyone, if any, I'm not sure, weighed more at the end of the meet. Most weighed the same or slightly less because you usually don't eat a whole lot during a meet. You're sweating, you use the bathroom more often than usual. Yeah, most people weigh the same or even less.
And that actually makes sense. Every contest I've ever done where I'm supposed to be like just slamming calories, you get a 5-event strongman day where from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. you're doing these hard events and you're trying to get as much sugar and fluids in you as you could possibly get. I still finish the day lighter than when I started. So even with a 24-hour weigh-in, the heaviest I'm going to be is early that morning. I'm going to be lighter by the time I leave the show.
Now, when and where can you find these meets? USSF is hosting its first annual nationals competition in January in Oakland.
USSF. Let's see if that's still a thing. Nope, it's transferred to International Barbell Federation, which looks non-existent. That takes us right back to here. Why does it always rain on me?
In California. And as far as I know, the meets only happen twice a year in the spring and fall. Gyms from all over the United States.
Why would you have a meet that is only run twice a year? All the problems stem from the people that are running these meets. It's like the least business-minded people on the planet, except for the ones that realize how they can just squeeze a sport to death by overcharging athletes for everything. But beyond that, they have no idea how to make things popular.
Let's host these meets. So go to the website and keep an eye out for the scheduled meets next year. I'm assuming that the more popular this thing gets, the more frequently you'll see meets popping up. But as of now, I think they only do the spring and fall classic.
You can assume, and you would be wrong.